Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Ken Smith, just an old guy having fun with trains, and I'm really excited about today's video because we are finishing our Out of Gold Mine and Stamp Mill Company Kit Bash project. Now, this is part 3. I'll throw links down in the description for parts 1 and 2. Make sure you check them out as well. I'd like to take a moment and just quickly thank all of our sponsors that helped us get to where we got with this build. Microengineering supplied us with all of the necessary track for this build, for Bob Smith Industries for supplying us with all of the CCA glue that we needed, for Type-On glue for supplying us with all of the white glue that we needed, for Excel blades and hand tools for supplying us with all of the necessary tools to assemble this kit bash, and for Arizona Rock and Mineral that supplied us with all of the ballast as well as the tailings that you'll see that we used in this project. So let's get at it. After just spending a night really thinking about it, I ended up taking it apart. I still plan on working on this. I got a few ideas, and I think what I'm going to do honestly is I've got some extra sides. I'm going to cut and raise this up so that this is going to be sitting up a little higher like that. I began studying this at a little closer level, so if I'm looking at the top elevation, my thought process was that I can reduce the length footprint if I decide to convert this into the actual mine. So my thought process is cutting right here on this line, which will kind of make it look like that, if you can get the idea. It shortens things up a little bit, and if I put some mining rail up here and turntable pit possibly, we might be able to have a little bit of an ore dump or debris dump, I should say, coming off of the cliff edge. Not sure yet if I want to do that or not, but I could definitely, since I have doors on both sides of these buildings, it would make sense to have maybe some ore track running across the top here. Maybe put a small fence. Not sure exactly what I'm going to do with that, but it definitely shortens up the length footprint. It'll add a little bit depth to it, but I have the room for the depth. My biggest concern is with the grandiose plan that I had, we're running a length of approximately 32 inches. That's a big footprint. And then the structure still looks somewhat tiny because we've just spreaded things out. And I'm not sure I really like that. So I'm not afraid of the razor saw, and you shouldn't be either. So I'm going to cut along this line and see what it looks like. I think I like this a lot better. This is, again, this would be on the top shelf. Our stamp mill would be coming down here. This would also create some interesting roof lines here on this building. Could be a bit of a challenge for me. I haven't actually done anything quite like that before, but I'm up for the challenge. I'm not afraid of the razor knife. I mean, what's the worst case scenario? You got to take it apart and do it again? I've obviously already done that. Also, I've taken the liberty to start scribing the sides and just kind of giving this a real weathered look. I don't want this to look like it's a fairly new structure. I want it to look like it's been there for a while and beat up, and so that's kind of my goal there. And so I'm going to go ahead and start cutting this and piecing it together. Building a realistic mill and mine scene helps when you have reference photos. I was fortunate to live in Colorado for over 2 decades. During that time, I built a huge library of mines and mills that were still standing or had been restored. Being a photographer, I knew that there would come a time when things that were not preserved would eventually disappear. Time and elements are always the key factors when it comes to structures left unpreserved. Then there is the access to something that can change. It can be limited or even eliminated. A case in point was the Argo Mill in Idaho Springs and the American Eagle Mine in Victor. When I first visited the Argo Mill, it was a self-guided tour. You could literally spend hours roaming around the grounds and inside the stamp mill. It is now a guided tour, and you are moved through the structure at a quick pace now. The American Eagle Mine in Victor was similar in regards to self-guided. However, the second time I went back, it was closed off to the public and access was eliminated altogether. It's for reasons like this that I made it a point to build a portfolio of photos that would not only assist me, but other modelers too. If you are watching this video, I have a special offer for my collection that contains not only what you see here, but thousands of other photos that cover the steam and diesel eras that you might also model. Be sure to check out the link that I put in the description. For less than the cost of a good reference book, you will have a collection that has well over 35,000 reference photos that include many close-up detail photos to assist you in your modeling. After getting the footprint and sketched in place, I've glued some styrofoam pieces. I've kind of laid some paper up there and some additional styrofoam back there. And I want to make sure that everything is going to fit. This is a very compressed scene. As you know, this is part of the slide out section here. I plan on having some step-up retaining walls that kind of step up here and then step up here. But the majority of this is going to be kind of a rock foundation, almost like it was kind of blasted out to put in the mine. That may not be prototypical, but again, I'm working with a very compressed space and trying to get the illusion of creating a stamp mill and mine in a very small space to work with. And I think I can pull this off. For the next step in this process, I actually have some old dryer sheets. And what I'm going to do to just kind of help mitigate some of this mess is I'm going to dip my plaster, or dip my dryer sheets into a little bit of plaster, kind of make my own plaster cloth, if you will. And this gives me a nice base. It's a great way to repurpose some plaster sheets, or it's a great way to repurpose some dryer sheets. There we go, finally got that out. And it's obviously a little cheaper than the rolled plaster cloth that you might find available through other sources. Wasn't sure how absorbent these were going to be, but I'm actually quite surprised at the outcome, to be honest with you. I didn't mix up a whole big batch because, as I said, wasn't really sure how this was going to work. But I'm actually quite surprised. The packing paper serves as a great foundation for the back end of our stamp mill and mine. If I didn't know any better, I got to be honest with you, this is almost just like regular old plaster cloth. So I'm actually very impressed. Might have just enough plaster in here for one more sheet. As Mama would say, waste not. So I'm trying not to waste anything. I'm going to go ahead and mix up some more, and we'll finish this all off. Now, I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but I've got some sawdust that came from a planer, and I'm going to mix this in with some plaster of Paris, try to get it some texture, and try to simulate sculpt mode. Now, I don't know if it's going to work or not, to be honest with you, but we're going to find out. I'm trying to scoot down so you can see me and see what I'm working on. I'll probably move the camera a little bit forward here in a moment. I'm mixing the plaster in the same ratio that I normally would per the instructions. I'm doing that, and then I'm just going to gently add some of the sawdust chips that I got. We're going to see what it does. I guess the worst case scenario is I got to rip everything out and redo it again, or put another coat of plaster on. I don't know. I have no idea what's right, what's wrong. It's definitely getting kind of a thicky, goopy consistency. Kind of looks like Sculptimo, maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of armed with a paint palette and a cheap 1-inch brush. I think that kind of looks pretty good. I might just add a little bit more. What have I got to lose at this juncture, right? I kind of want something that might just cling a little bit. So, all right, I think we got it all mixed in. We're going to stick it in the oven, set the oven at 350, 20 minutes, cookies should be ready. I'm just kidding. All right, let's get up closer. All right, you can kind of maybe see what it looks like. It's kind of lumpy. I think I've got it mixed up. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of brush it on, I guess. Well, it definitely has some texture. Probably maybe put too much sawdust in there. But it definitely has some texture, that's for sure. Does seem to be clinging. I guess that's a good thing. These were definitely some big chips of sawdust in here, so I don't know. I don't think it looks horribly bad. Definitely was a lot cheaper than Sculptamold. Try to say that 3 times fast. Well, I think that just might work. Definitely has some texture to it, for sure. We'll get up close and let you take a look at it and let me know what you think. That's just mixing up some sawdust right into the plaster. I think once we get some paint on there and maybe some ground cover and some other stuff, that might just work. All right, we're going to finish it up. All right, I've got the, I threw some mixed house paint that I created. This was actually the color of the backdrop. And wanted to see how it would look on this, and honestly, I think it's too gray for me. I really want a look that is more along the lines of this. And before I run out and buy a bunch of paint, I'm trying some house paint and just some different color variations that I'm mixing. And so I am going to let this fully dry, and then I'm going to go back over and try it with another color that I just created. What I'm looking for is to be able to have a consistent color all the way around the layout for the mountains. And so once I establish what that color looks like, then I can probably have a larger batch mixed. But things don't always appear on the card samples as they do in real life. And so it's easier to walk in and say, okay, here's the color I got, I need it, go ahead and scan it. So what I've done is I've taken some house paint, and you can kind of see it there, and just used a little bit of kind of a yellowish color that we had, and some very dark brown, and I'm just kind of mixing this up, going to dilute it with water, and do the same process that I did on here once this fully dries. All right, so our left side is still wet, obviously. All I've really done is I took a little mixture, diluted it with water that you see right here, and then basically all I'm doing is kind of, I don't want to say dry brushing, but because I'm not really dry brushing. The brush is obviously wet. But I'm not going over every little nook and cranny either. I'm actually letting some of that gray kind of poke its head through, kind of cover, kind of give me a little bit of variation in color, and I'm pretty pleased with, at least from a wet perspective, how it looks. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of continue painting this whole thing, let it dry, and then come back and take a look at it and kind of give another assessment as to how it is looking. Yeah, I definitely like the variations that I've got at this juncture, so it was probably a good mistake. Every now and then it's kind of nice to have a good mistake, kind of a win-win. I think it came out a lot better. Now obviously we've got to get some talus. It's actually going to be in this area here. We've got 2 levels of retaining walls that we're going to be putting here, and then the second level is going to be going there. All of our structures are going to fit in that general area there. But I'm really happy with how this came out. I was able to blend the areas that I didn't replaster, so pretty pleased with that. Which you remember earlier on in the video, I said I want to come up with a routine that is going to be duplicatable all the way across the layout, and this actually proved that it can be. So it's time to start installing track and some ground cover and some other stuff. We're going to be making our own ground cover out of sawdust, so I'm excited to give that a whirl. We'll probably do a separate video on how we did that. And yeah, so I'm really pleased with where we're at. I knew that I would be installing windows in the mine and the mill. However, what I ended up doing was I cut up a old strawberry container and used the flat sections and painted them with dull coat. Now, the first thing you're probably thinking is, well, if you painted them with dull coat, you're not going to be able to see through them. They're going to look kind of frosted. And honestly, that's exactly the look I was looking for. If you look at pictures of mills and stamp mills and whatnot, a lot of the glass just got filthy over the years. And so this helped to replicate that filthiness. Also, you can't see inside the whole model, which is not, which I should say is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want anybody to see inside the model, so we'll take a look at that now. Now, if we look inside and look at the model, all of the windows are frosted. You can clearly see that there is, we'll get this one up close, actually. And that's what I mean by frosted. You can see that there's glass in there, but we don't have that see-through ability. So when somebody is looking at this, they just can't see through it. They can see the plastic, but they can't see inside it. And that's really the look that I was hoping for. One of my major frustrations with the front of this building was that these windows right here sat up too high. And there was nothing, there was no door, there was nothing in front of this. And it really never sat well with me. And so what I ended up doing was I took the old freight platform and I cut this section out right here. And I glued it onto here. It's the perfect width, actually. And that solved one of the problems. So now I've got a freight ramp, if you will, use my little pointy stick right here. And it's actually the perfect height of a boxcar, which is what I wanted. So if we get along the side here, you can see it really is the perfect height. And get this out of the way and the camera will focus there. There we go. You can see it's really the right height, which it should be. That solved one of the problems, but we still had a door to deal with. Well, it just so happens that I came up with a solution for that too. So the solution for my freight door was one that actually presented itself. We're going to actually put the freight door in that general area right there. And now the windows seem to be at a good height. There's a door there, which seems to make sense, so that we can load the precious ore into the box cars that would be coming down on this siding right here. So the only thing that I'm going to need to do is bring the roadbed over into this area a little closer to our loading ramp, and we'll trim it off here in the front. So I'm very excited about that. That was a situation that really bothered me, and we've just now eliminated that. All right, so here is what I'm doing for the retaining wall. Now I actually have to build two of these. I repurposed this one from the Winnemuck Mine diorama that I built earlier, and I'll throw a link down in the description for that as well. That's actually a really nice kit if you want something to fit in a small spot. It really works very well. But anyhow, I pulled that retaining wall off. I had this new section that came with the stamp mill kit. And since I had two stamp mill kits, I have enough sections. So you'll notice that they were actually cast in two different colors. Now, how I did this, and I'll try to move in a little bit closer, is I cut the end off of one side. So this was actually, would be like this over here. Does that kind of make sense now? So I cut the end off of this side right here and did a butt joint glue, if you will, with this piece that looked exactly like that. That gave me a nice butt joint, and then from there I just cut some little pieces of sprue like this, and cut the sprue off in tiny little sections, and I went ahead and I used Bob Smith Industries CCA glue. Now I used their accelerator for this as well, and the reason why I use the accelerator is, one, trying to do a butt joint and waiting for CCA to set can be a bit challenging, and so I put the accelerator on as soon as I got the butt joint set where I wanted to, and then I went ahead and cut off the little sections of sprue, sanded the faces that are showing, and then glued them all in place. I need to put a spot in here for the mine tailings, and so what I did was I actually carved a little piece of the rock out so that this is going to fit there like so, and trying to hold the camera and put this in place. There we go. Kind of in that general area, and then that feeder track is coming over here at the other end of the stamp mill. And so our mine tailings are going to be dropping right down in this general area here. And again, a compressed scene, but I think, at least I think it's pretty effective. I think this will work just fine. At this juncture, I've got pretty much everything in place now. I've gone ahead and installed all the cribbing, actually made the bottom one with some shish kebab sticks. The diameters were pretty close to this, and I've got buildings that are going to sit in this general area here. I've glued our Microengineering Code 83 rail into place. Now, I made the decision not to power this, run any leads to this, and the reason being, quite honestly, is the switch is just off to the right side, off screen, and this particular area is probably never going to actually see power, to be honest with you. Again, I'm not much of a switcher, and even if I did run a locomotive down here, that's about as far as it would really probably get. You get 1 or 2 boxcars and a caboose, maybe 3 boxcars tops. And so I just didn't see the need for doing that. I did go ahead and sand the cork to be flush with the cork on that side. So what I'll do is I saved some of the ties, and I'll cut those and glue those in place when we're all said and done. But next, what I want to do is I want to kind of wet this area here so that we can start putting in our mill tailings, our mine and mill tailings that we picked up from Arizona Rock and Minerals. So we're going to go ahead and put those in. We're going to wet that area down with some denatured alcohol, kind of do that as a wetting agent with a couple of drops of dish soap in there, and then we'll sprinkle our mine tailings down, and then kind of use our matte medium mixture to secure everything in place. I got our wetting agent on. I'm going to just go ahead and lightly try to sprinkle our mine tailings down here. Now this is going to take a couple of different attempts to try to get this to work, and that's okay. I think this is going to look really good when this is done. I'm liking how that's all starting to come into play. We're going to go ahead and let that dry completely, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. I've gone ahead and brushed our ballast in. Now I use a cheap paintbrush to just kind of feather away all of the
ballast that might be sitting on top of the ties and whatnot. And then after that, I'm going to lightly mist the area with our wetting agent. Again, just our 91% rubbing alcohol or isopropyl, whatever it's called, alcohol. And we're just going to go ahead and wet that area. And this is going to give our glue mixture a chance to adhere to everything and to just soak into the ballast that we just got done laying. I actually kind of boofed a little area right there, so I'm gonna just kind of gently move some of that ballast in place. There we go. I really like how the Arizona rock and mineral ballast looks. It looks good because it's real rock. I use a condiment dispenser to help glue things in place. It's a bit tedious, I realize that, but I find that it works pretty good. All right, a couple things I wanted to point out just before we get into weathering. Now, I did not have another section of roof that had the same matching tile. So all I did was cut a piece of cardboard, quite honestly, some cardstock, and I used that, painted it black, because you won't see this up close. You'll see it off in a distance, but you'll be 4 feet away from it, and you'll have that kind of an angle. When you're up close and personal, you're going to have this kind of an angle. So you'll never see the texture here. So as long as I painted it black, it doesn't matter. Quite honestly, if I didn't have a wall, I would not have lost sleep, but I had a wall, so I went ahead and used it. But that's just kind of a tip. If you have a scene that doesn't require you to build an entire structure and you need an open side or whatnot, that's totally fine. Like from right here, if this building was like this, you really wouldn't know, or even if it was like this, you really wouldn't know that that's not shingled. So just wanted to point that out before we get into the weathering aspect. Again, I'm trying to reach around the camera to do this, but I'm only going to primarily worry about portions that you actually see. Now I'm again, just remember to go up and down the same exact way that your building would run, and do it like your roof lines. Do it with, I should say, your roof lines. Remember that water is going to run down, and so we want that same look. Which means on something like this where you've got two distinct roof lines, you want to make sure that things appear to be going down in a natural state. The artist chalk that, or weathering chalks that I'm using, this is going back 20 years ago, but I had several of these containers, and so I don't believe in inventing the wheel. This is Stony Mountain Classic Castings weathering chalks. I like how they work. There's lots of weathering chalks that are out there, so your mileage may vary. Adding a little bit of light in there will give you some variations to your weathering so it all doesn't look exactly the same. Takes a little bit before this becomes absolutely affixed to your model. Kind of a nice little side effect is this is actually running straight down almost naturally, and so I'm able to get the side walls, and it's really starting to look nice. I really like a grunge look. That's just kind of my style, my signature style, I guess, if you will. Won't really see an awful lot of this side. Remember, I told you that I used dull coat on the windows, and you know, my photo CD, well, not really a photo CD anymore because I don't make those, but our photo collection shows the stamp mill, the Argo Mine and Mill, and it shows how cloudy the windows are. And I got to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons why I stuck with that. You really can't even see through the windows. It's when you're inside that structure, it's pretty rough looking. I'll get in with a finer detail brush to just kind of brush away some of the dirt or chalk around the structure where it's kind of clumped up like in here and whatnot. But that just goes to show you just how quick we can make something look really weathered. And for a building, I think that looks pretty good. That looks very realistic to me. Very worn. We've got a mine that's obviously not going to be taken care of. So we're going to continue on and weather everything else the same exact way. Now the figures that we actually got on Temu. And don't beat me up when I tell you that, but that's what we did. And I repainted some of them. Just enough to kind of change things up a little bit. You can see how our weathering came out. I'm really excited about that. And remember what I told you about the cardboard roof over there. This is if you were to walk in and see it straight on, and then if we were to walk around the layout, you can see how far away we are. This is probably, as the crow flies, this is probably right about 4.5 feet, and we're still looking at that straight on. we literally have to come all the way down here before we see that side. So by weathering it and painting it the way we did, you'll never know that there's not shingles that are on that. And really pleased with how that has come out. Kind of move up for our tailings. And our tailings are Arizona Rock and Mineral. We actually put some of the tailings right inside the car. And again, the figure that you see is a Temu figure. It was actually dressed in a suit, and I just kind of repainted it. And I did the same thing over here with this figure, just repainted it. And you see him pushing in ore there from the mine going into the stamp mill. And then kind of bumped that. We still have a little bit of ground cover that we need to put down, but a little pile of railroad ties here, and over here we've got a pile of our retaining wall, and really all of those round pieces are nothing more than just barbecue skewers. So also I wanted to point out that the Temu figures actually were station figures, and so they had suitcases on them and whatnot, and all I did was just cut the suitcases off and repaint them, kind of make it look like workwear. So Arizona Rock and Mineral ballast, and of course micro engineering code 83 flex track goes there. So that's going to wrap things up. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day, and y'all be blessed.